The debate about cantering and harness has been ongoing for years, and in this film we are going to discuss our viewpoint on the subject. In our opinion, we think that horses should be taught to work happily at all paces in harness, which includes the canter and gallop. We believe that a horse should be safe, confident, and happy in any sphere of harness work, and the more your horse can do in harness, the more confident it will be, and the wider both of your horizons will be. Whether you want to compete in driving trials, where faster paces can make the difference between winning or losing, use the canter to aid interval training for fitness on a pleasure drive, or give your coaching team a helping hand by letting them spring a hill, canter should be treated as a valuable additional, not to mention natural, gait, just like the walk and trot. So why do some people say not to canter in harness? One reason they state is that the horse will then start breaking to canter at the trot, which is frowned upon in the show ring or in a harness race. A ground-covering extended trot can indeed be faster than a bouncy canter, however breaking pace is in the hands of the driver. The fine line between pushing your horse forwards to get it to extend to show the judges what they want to see, yet asking it to remain at the trot before it thinks about changing gait, should be able to be felt by the driver and corrected before the horse actually changes pace. Just as you should be able to get an active walk out of your horse without him breaking to trot, the same logic applies when focusing on the trot to canter transition. In harness racing, hobbles are often used to keep the horses at a trot. You would not expect to see these in the show ring, however. If your horse will work happily at all paces, if it does break to a canter, it is no big deal. You simply ask it to come back to a trot and do some more work on discipline and transitions. If your horse has never experienced a canter, then if it ever does break to a canter from a trot, as you are trying to extend for example, it could panic and bolt. You could then be left with reschooling a runaway, a terrified horse who has physical and mental scars from the incident, who requires complete retraining long before you can start working on your basic trot transitions again, if indeed it is even happy to go back in harness. Some people argue that by teaching your horse to canter, it is more likely to run away, because it encourages the horse to utilize its faster gaits. Notwithstanding the fact that a horse is a flight animal, and therefore faster gaits are instinctive to use, by that logic, if a driver was to only ever walk their horse, one would assume that their horse would never run away. Yet how many carriage drivers have experienced a horse breaking into a trot when it is walking, for example if it gets startled by a bird jumping out of a hedge? How many have experienced a horse attempting to walk off when it has been asked to stand still, for example at a road junction? If we never walked the horse in harness, we would assume that it should always remain at a perfect halt between the shafts. This would be highly impractical, yet people are happy to apply the same reasoning to canter, when really it should be nothing to be afraid of. As drivers, should we really advocate that our horses should only work at the walk, in case any faster gait encourages them to bolt? In our opinion, it is the schooling and training of the horses, and the control of his paces through the driver, and confidence both in the driver and himself, that is key. We believe in training the horse at every pace, and then the driver can choose which pace to work at. If you are worried about your horse breaking into a canter, then consider why you are worried. Perhaps it is your own fear of the horse getting out of control due to a lack of training or confidence, or concerns about how the horse will react, indicating a lack of training, for example. Problems with transitions are a training matter and should not be resolved by eliminating one pace from the horse's driving. You should deal with the root cause of the problem, not mask it, a principle which is further explained in our video about the use of kicking straps. To use a different analogy, if you are driving a car with 5 gears, you should be capable of controlling that car in all 5 gears. We do not take our driving test solely in first gear, and then assume that this will eliminate us from having an accident. Whether you choose to drive everywhere in first gear is your choice, but at least you know if you do want to use the other 4 higher gears, you can do so. A car that only has 1 gear would not be safe to take on a motorway, for example, where every other car might be travelling in 5th gear, yet cars that have 5 gears can go everywhere a car with 1 gear can. So why do we canter on the roads as well as on grass? Some people state concussion as a factor in why they only walk on the roads. This point is discussed in more detail in our other film about roadwork. We ensure every horse we train has cantered both on the road and on grass. People often say that their horse gets excited when worked on grass, so we want to ensure we can work the horses at a fast pace on a surface that they usually associate with play, in a wide open space, so there are no visual barriers such as a fence to restrain them. Asking the horse to come back from a gallop to a halt in a rubber bit while heading towards home shows that the horse is listening to the driver and has been trained properly. In our opinion, this is better than being faced with an overexcited horse pulling on the bit and possibly becoming uncontrollable, and the driver being unable or unwilling, therefore, to take them on grass. We also canter horses on the roads, because the noise of the carriage behind the horse is somewhat muted on a grass or sand surface. On the roads, any rattling noises from the vehicle can be heard clearly, as well as the noise of the horse's own hooves. If your horse is only cantered on grass, the increased noise of the carriage at a fast pace behind the horse out on the roads can startle it. The horse thinks there is a scary monster chasing it, and then bolts. Therefore, we ensure that horses have experienced the canter on a solid surface, out on the roads. We canter them both on the flat and while going uphill, showing that they are controllable when they have no weight behind them on the flat, just the same as they are controllable when they are going uphill and have to pull the full load of the carriage. This further enhances the point that the horse is under the driver's control in a variety of different situations, both on and off-road, and that the driver can control them at every pace, both on and off-road. Even if owners choose to only canter their horses off-road once they take them home, as trainers our job is to give horses the best possible start to their education, and that means exposing them to situations that they could encounter so that they are less likely to be frightened should it ever happen in the future. If a horse is trotting down the road and slips, breaking into a canter, we think the driver should simply be able to ask the horse back to a trot and continue on their drive, rather than be faced with a bolting horse on the public highway and potentially a major disaster, all because canter work was not included during the horse's initial training.